All right, seniors, good to see you this morning. I have a guest with me. Many of you have seen him around, is Thomas Lindstadt. His dad Ron works around here as well, and I want you to get to know Thomas a little bit more today. And so, I mean, the obvious first question I need to ask him for you to get to know him is, when did you first start growing your beard?
A long time ago, about 6 years ago, CCS, I'm not sure if you still have a rule on beards or not now, but we weren't allowed to grow beards at all. We were supposed to be clean shaven. Even our hair was supposed to be not be a certain length in the back and whatnot, and couldn't reach the collars or whatnot. And but eventually, I guess chairs in the way. Basically, I don't know. I started being able to grow facial hair around probably like 8th or 9th grade, and it wasn't much, but it was there, and so I just shaved it. And eventually, senior year came around, and I don't know why, but I just started not shaving it, and no one told me not to. And it just
When it appeared.
It grew on me, but it it was fun, and I graduated with it wasn't like a big early beard. It was mainly just kind of like this, what I have right now, except a little less, because over the years you kind of get more. That's when I started growing a beard.
I think a couple of you guys even talked about that in class when you remember Thomas with his beard, and it might have been a little intimidating there. All right, tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I'll start with my sister. She and I grew up, fighting each other, tooth and nail, over every little thing, up until about high school, and then we just kind of didn't talk to each other much. But then once college hit and once she was gone, she was very homesick, and she loved talking to me about things, and she loved my little spouts of wisdom, even though I didn't think they were that great. She still loved them, and she just loved someone to talk to, and now we're kind of best friends, and able to do that. And she's actually a teacher here now for 4th grade.
Yes,
yeah, that's right, 4th grade.
Yeah.
And she's having a blast doing it.
Good.
She loves her kids, and she loves what God's doing in her life.
Amen. She's doing a great job.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that she went here also. So a little backstory about me. I started going here when I was in kindergarten, and I graduated. Same with my sister. She also went here in kindergarten and graduated.
Nice.
And it's funny that kind of made full circle that she now works here again.
Yes, I love it.
It's a blessing.
And she graduated from Biola.
Correct.
All right.
And she got a master's too in Biola.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your education after high school here.
Yeah. Education. I started at Point Loma after high school here at CCS. That's down in San Diego. I'm sure you guys have read into it. Last year you were doing applications, right, juniors, and that was a really good experience. So I went there for 2 whole years, and the spiritual life there was amazing. I didn't know it at the time that it was amazing until I transferred. But let's talk about Point Loma for now. Their education was good, not directly for what I was doing. I realized later on I'm going into mechanical engineering, and so I really want to go into that realm. Point Loma's not really tailored to that exact bit of career, but so eventually I transferred to California Baptist University.
And, great college.
And let's see, I don't know if it's changed much over the years, but I found that the spiritual life there is not as intimate. Probably because of the size. It's grown a lot in the past few years. What size was it when you went?
I think around 3,000.
Okay, it's about 10,000 now.
Yeah.
On campus, I think. So it is still growing very fast. Like they're making off-campus housing and everything. But I think that has to do with the the lack of intimacy in spiritual life. I feel like unless you really go out of your way and try to find it yourself, which you should.
Yeah.
But I just saw at Point Loma, they had this really awesome connection with your spirituality, and making great ways so that you can focus on that with friends and fellowship.
So coming from here, was it intimidating to go off to college?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the biggest changes in my life was going to college.
Yeah.
And people kept on telling me, you'll get through it, and it'll all work out. And there's this little voice in the back of my brain saying, I don't know about this, going off, for months on end away from home, just to get studies out of the way, and just looking at this list of units you gotta take, it's like 140 I think for mechanical engineering, and it's massive at the beginning, and it seems like it, and it is massive, but what I would say to seniors, you're seniors, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that just trust in the education you've learned from CCS, because what habits you learned at CCS and what skills you learn here at CCS, as far as learning and being intellectual, will transfer over to college, and it depends on how much you really trust your skills. But also, when you go into these classes, they're not expecting you to know differential equations right off the bat. They start knowing that you're students. You're learning just how you were in high school. Mm-hmm. Just the placement's different, and you're going to be learning things you never learned before, but you've been doing that all your life. Yeah. And so, really, it's just where you are that's different. And
so, just for clarity, did you transfer from Point Loma to Cal Baptist just for the major?
Yeah. It was probably the hardest decision of my life, actually, was transferring from Point Loma to...
And you lived?
Cal Baptist. Yeah, I lived, and I was right now, I have 3.5 weeks left of school until I'm graduated.
Remote school?
Right, remote school, right, exactly. And then they shipped me my diploma.
So our students here also are looking at a similar thing. Maybe.
Right. Oh yeah, you guys are seniors, exactly.
And they're not. The plans for graduation are kind of up in the air. So we're going to do something.
Right.
Is Cal Baptist going to do something?
They're postponing it to August.
Okay.
Because that's when they're expecting it all to at least settle down completely to where they can have a large group of people, like a graduation happen. Okay. So they're postponing it then, and in Riverside,
have to do that too.
Yeah, in Riverside it's about 114 degrees right there in August, about the hottest time of the year there.
Ooh.
So I'm probably not going to go down.
You're not going to walk?
No.
Wow.
The thing about me is that when I transferred, what made it such a hard decision was all the friends that I had back at Point Loma, and it just, especially when you're going into mechanical engineering or some degree of the equivalent of difficulty, it's kind of hard to find a really good friend group. I mean, you really can. It just where I was, and they weren't putting me in a dorm. I was in an apartment, with a smaller group of people, and we really just it was kind of hard. And so, where was I going with this? What was the question?
Well, when you're doing this transfer, it's a little bit intimidating.
Right.
But it's also with you're looking at leaving all the friends that you've established.
Right.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard to transition.
Right.
To a new friend group.
Right.
How did you choose your friends though?
Yeah. So I was mentioning before this interview, we were talking about just things to talk about, in the interview. And one of them that came up was I love this one devotional that I made, and it has to do with basically how to choose your friends. And for you, as seniors in high school, it's really, really important to know who you choose your friends to be. Like, the devotion starts with knowing who the 5 closest people are around you. And when you know that, you know kind of how you average out as who you are, and some people you're closer to in that small group, but in general, it's those 5 closest people. And the way I've been choosing my friends is I really want to seek out people who I know will want the best for me in life, and who will kind of help me go towards the directions that they see as good for me. Because when you're looking at just yourself, it's a really small sample size of just one of I'm only seeing myself as what I want to do with my career. But if other people see me from the outside, they can give me guidance and give me
into that.
Exactly. And that's one really important thing when you go into college, is to not only make friends quick off the bat, but, and I shouldn't say be wary on making friends, but really be
choosy.
what's the word I'm looking for?
Selective.
Selective, intentional.
Yes.
Intentional with your choosing of those friends,
Yes.
because typically.
Good wisdom.
So a lot of people will be friendly, and they'll be friendly on the surface, but really see what the fruit that they produce from their character, from their heart, and that's kind of how I decide on who I want to be close with in my life. Actually, you just interviewed Daniel.
Yes.
Yeah,
they met Daniel on interview.
And so he's definitely one of my closest friends, and I see him as someone that
He's a
will
deep
always,
well.
yeah, deep well of information and
Yeah.
love and kindness, and to everyone he sees. But especially, I love having that in my life, to where I know someone will be able to tell me, I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not, or go for it.
Yes.
Go with this. I think it's good for you.
Good.
But yeah, that's kind of how I went about choosing friends.
Good. So how? I think this next question dovetails into that. How do you maintain your faith in college?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It kind of spreads out with friends, and the number one thing is make a friend group, especially with ones who you're alike, especially in the faith, to where you're going to go out and find a home away from home, which is what I like to call my church back in Riverside. We'll get to that later, I think. I can get a question later that taps on that. But I guess we can go on in this question.
Yeah.
But yeah, number one, have a good friend group that is godly and that will kind of tend to you in your times of struggle away from home. Because when you're not home, you have this disconnect with the church you were with back home, especially if you had a strong relationship with that church. And at Point Loma, I had a really, really good friend group who was very godly. We had devotionals, we had a bunch of things that was not inside of a church, group, or like at an actual brick and mortar church. It was really just weekly devotionals, multiple weekly devotionals. I had like 3 or 4 per week I'd attend to, which felt really awesome in my spiritual life. When I went to Riverside, I had no idea what I was going to do. But a funny story about that point when I transferred was about 2 weeks before I transferred, actually moved into California Baptist University. I was playing music for my worship group at church, and some people were in the crowd, or in the congregation, who were visiting our new pastor, who took over our old pastor's spot as senior pastor, and he was from Riverside, or not Riverside, he was from Highlands, but it was pretty close to Riverside, that area down there. And those people in the crowd, the congregation, they were from his old church, and they were coming up to visit and see him preach. And they came up to me, and they heard by word of mouth that I would be going down to CBU, and they gave me their information, and I was thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to work, I'm not sure how far away it is, I'm not sure, what this church is like or whatnot. But I think it was 1 week past when I went to CBU, and then I decided to go to church just to see how it was. And just that Sunday that I went to was the last Sunday that their regular worship leader was leading worship. And so he was going to move to Arizona. And they really needed someone to take charge of that. Wow. And I was like, I guess I'll do it.
Divine appointment.
Yeah, it really was. It's probably, that's one of the biggest divine intervention, divine appointment I've ever seen in my life, which is very awesome to see that and see that that's really where God was calling me to be.
Yeah. So just to summarize that, you got to, in order to maintain your faith, you got to pick your friends intentionally. You got to get plugged into a body of believers through church. What other major areas do you think will really help solidify your faith journey in those difficult years of being in college?
Really, if you have, what I found to be really close to me was my relationship with my professors in CBU. At least a couple of them are very godly, and I could tell that through, their fruit and how they present themselves. And it's
connected with them.
Yeah, especially it's a really big mix of emotions and a mix of paths that you want to take when you're in college and you don't really know what you want to do. And having a godly mentor, for lack of better terms, from your professor that you really admire and very closely connect to in your field is pretty essential to that as well.
Good. Well, you guys are going to be heading off pretty soon to college, and I think you guys want to see how someone has gone through here and then gone into college and maintained their faith. And these are some good thoughts being expressed for you to also to invest in and to plan on, so that you guys can leave college with your faith even stronger than when you left high school. So would you describe that to be true? Your faith is even stronger now?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. When I left high school, it was very routine as far as going to church and everything. When you leave high school, it's all, you kind of independent in many ways,
Yeah.
especially when you're down in college, away from home, and you make a lot of decisions yourself. It's
Yeah.
many Sunday mornings, I would wake up and be like, I really don't want to go to church, and it really, it was because it really did feel routine to do that. But really, when you make a decision, a conscious decision yourself to go to church and seek God and bear His fruit, it becomes much more integrated within your soul, your mind.
Do you have personal devotion time as well?
Hmm?
Did you maintain
Yes.
a personal devotion time?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Which, basically at least once every morning,
Good.
read the Bible.
Good.
But
Awesome.
besides that, like I said, we had 4 times a week,
Yeah.
friendly devotion. But it's
Yeah.
really important to get your solo time in with God,
Yeah.
your quiet time in, and
Mhm.
to really have that integrated in you.
Good.
It's really important for you to have.
So tell me, we all have little dry spells too, difficult periods in our life spiritually, and how'd you navigate those time periods?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record or anything, but my biggest dry spell was when I transferred from Point Loma to Cal Baptist.
Yeah.
That was a very big dry spell. Not saying like it's a bad idea to transfer. Like that's what, if you know what you want, you go for it. And I knew what I wanted to do with my career, and that's mechanical engineering. So I transferred. But that's not to say it wasn't going to be an easy decision.
Yeah.
It was a very difficult decision.
Because you're unplugging from those friend groups who
Right.
let you, yeah.
Which I'm still friends with them right now.
Yeah.
But definitely you get disconnected no matter what you do.
Yeah. Did you find, just on a sidebar here, did you find that it was hard to connect in the same way as a junior that you connected with other freshmen who were vulnerable to being on a new campus and everything else? Was it more difficult because friendships were more established transferring into CBU? Was that a challenge in this whole process?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I transferred, like I said earlier, they put me in an apartment, and usually you make a lot of friends your freshman year because you put into a dorm.
Yeah.
And they kind of force you to socialize.
Right.
And it works, and it was great at Point Loma, but at Cal Baptist, nothing. They basically, there's ways for you, obviously, to go out and, meet new people and whatnot, just do classes and whatnot, and to find new friends. But in college, it's so much different than high school. Number one, I guess you're surrounded by people that you, I guess, are more like, that, but not in good ways sometimes, or how should I put this? Even though you're on the same intellectual level as these people who in the same kind of like skill set, doesn't mean they're people that you want to be your friends. And it's kind of like how I was in engineering. And it really, I don't know, it took a long time just to make 3 really close friends. I have pools of acquaintances, and then friends, and then really close friends at Cal Baptist, and that's kind of how that worked. And it was
Took time.
Yeah.
It takes more time because it's not as purposeful. Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Okay. So, tell us about your faith journey. when you first encountered the gospel for yourself and your faith became real, and then if you can share a little bit about how the gospel is impacting your life currently, and then how do you think the gospel is going to impact your future?
Yeah, college, because college, you know, you want to know what you're doing with your future.
Yeah.
And hopefully the gospel is really shaping that. But let's see, the first part of that question was...
when did you first encounter the gospel for real?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you guys still do this, still go to Hume Lake for sixth grade? No?
Sixth grade,
Sixth grade, okay, yeah. You do?
Yeah.
That's great, I love it.
Yeah.
Because that's where I really first encountered the gospel by myself, I guess. It wasn't really by myself, it was this huge campfire where we were all sitting around, and a really, really strong devotional there, and I really felt God calling me to be a son of God.
Amen.
And, but that, you know, I don't really call it anything, really, but I guess what I would call it is, in my life I've had many points at which I've had a light bulb moment, I guess. Yeah, there you go, light bulb moment. And, you know, I'm not one to make New Year's resolutions, it just really happens throughout any time of the year, where my mind just kind of clicks and says, let's change something about this, you know. That's kind of analogous to what I would say is my faith journey.
Yeah.
And how there's many points in my life where I'm like, I really need to change this about myself and my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so many points were that were actually a spiritual emphasis every single year, especially in quiet time right after chapel. You know that man, is still like my favorite thing about spiritual emphasis was that quiet time.
Yeah.
And just looking at the stars and just really reflecting, finding a couple of verses that I know that God really wants me to see for myself, and and that's really kind of how that looked as far as like really seeing that reflection. And then going to college was a big section of my life where I had to make some changes and really had to do some self-reflection, a lot of reading, a lot of praying, and yeah, I say that's.
So how does it impact, like you're graduating the gospel?
Yeah.
How does that impact your friends? How does it impact your transition? I mean, what specifically do you think you're going to be doing with this engineering degree?
Yeah, that's a huge question for any Christian who wants to go into the field that they love, because God did put that passion into your heart.
Yeah.
But that God doesn't exactly tell you how to implement, furthering the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, with
mechanical
what you do.
engineering degree.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so he leaves that up to us. He kind of gives us these passions, but then he kind of most times sometimes it's a little easier in the sense that you want to be a pastor. Oh, that's easy. Or you want to go do mission work. But for mechanical engineering, I had an internship last summer, and it was very just dry. I did not like working at a desk all day.
Yeah.
It wasn't my forte.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because it'd be really difficult to find a way to further God in my life in that sense, or to other people. So that kind of opened my eyes to what else I could do with a degree like this. And so there's a few routes that I'm looking at right now, from kind of branching out with it. I thought of becoming an Air Force pilot.
Nice.
This is still on my tray of ideas. It'd be a lot of fun, and but a lot of work. But then in that I was thinking, do I really want to fly just because it's in the Air Force, or do I want to fly for other reasons? And then but one of those other reasons was maybe I just want to fly. Maybe I just want to because I just have a little passion for that, a little passion.
Sidebar story.
Yeah.
I've been on an airplane with him, in a small airplane, sitting in the back seat while he sat in the front seat. Yeah. And he was so interested in how this whole thing flew, that he was distracting our pilot and actually going, what does this lever do and button do? And we were going over mountaintops up in Alaska, and it was a little bit like, Thomas, don't distract our pilot here because I wanted to live. But yeah, I think you have a strong interest in that. I can see you wanting to do that.
Yeah, I'm going to see the camera. Some very godly professors back at Point Loma that I still need to talk to. One of them I really need to talk to because of what I'll talk about later. But one of them I've been talking to about the Air Force because he was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and he's a very godly person. He does devotionals almost every class period. Through what we're going to talk about that day. And he's the one who I sort of talked about of doing mission aviation fellowship, where you fly supplies around the world for students like that, or for
Missionaries.
Yeah, for missionaries basically, and for and I know there's one professor who I admire most of what he's done with his life, and it seems like he's done everything with his life, kind of like Mr. Williams. But it's crazy. And so he also did Mission Aviation Fellowship, but he's also a professor for California Baptist University, and he looks like he's 33. So it's like, how does that happen? So in those ways, I'd like to do that. As far as engineering goes, I'm not too worried about finding ways to further the gospel, because I feel like my fruit will be produced whatever I do.
Yep.
And that's kind of with any, I shouldn't say any, but most careers, you can do that as long as you produce fruit.
You're living on mission then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah.
So you're just before you tell about how you think the gospel is going to impact your future, but a little bit more. But you're in a stage right now. Then you don't know exactly right now what your next step is.
So if you're confused on what you want to do with your life right now, don't worry, because you'll eventually find it out. Yeah, I think. But
you're content still in your relationship with God, even though you're not 100% sure what in the world the next door is for you to step through.
If he wants me to go work at an engineering firm for a few years for the rest of my life, so be it. But definitely, I'm still open to many doors that he has for me to open.
Okay. So your peace levels on a scale of 10, completely at peace, and 0, you're freaking out. Where are you?
Well, during this coronavirus, I'm not so sure.
Okay.
No,
we are 6 feet.
Yeah, I think it's about 6 feet. But as far as peace levels go,
just because the jobs market's going down while you're trying to get a job, and you don't know exactly what God has for you.
Yeah, I'd say, right now, as far as I'm right in the middle of the semester right now, and so I have a lot going on there, so it's kind of keeping my brain occupied from thinking of the future.
Okay. You got something to do.
Yeah, I got something to do as far as that goes, but as far as after college and, my peace levels of trying to figure out what I want to do, or how this is going to happen, I'd say, I really just pray a lot, that God shows me the way, and kind of like the way he showed me with the whole worship team.
Yeah. Open that door.
Yeah, open the door, wide open, and just kind of let it be.
Yeah.
And so, I'd say my peace levels are pretty high right now.
Yeah.
I'm not so stressed about that.
Yeah.
I'm just stressed about the next assignment that I have that's due.
Well, they can relate then.
Yeah.
So, impact of how the gospel. Tell us a little bit about how you think it's going to impact you someday in a position of maybe being a husband, a father. How do you want the gospel to continue to impact the lives that you're going to be around and the people you're going to be around? Yeah.
Hopefully that will be in a good way. Hopefully impacting them. That's a good question. Well, I feel like if you have a good way of making good grooves in your life, that'll help you keep the gospel in your right path, I guess. Then the gospel will kind of put you back on track. But as far as like maintaining that devotional time with God is hopefully going to affect me, like you said, as a father, as a husband, and knowing, I guess it comes down to a lot of decision making, of what, because there's a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing as far as career wise or whatever, that God would not want you to do, and so I'd say, as far as the gospel impacting me in that way, I'd say there's gonna be a lot of decisions in life. Mm-hmm. Many more to come, and I haven't even seen the half of it.
Yeah.
It's a long journey, and it doesn't even stop here after death. It's an ongoing process, but it's decision after decision after decision, and without the right wisdom that God would have you have in your mind, it's really difficult to make those decisions and to see how that would play out, because that in the end, if you follow what God wants you to do, it will be for the better and be for His kingdom.
Amen. So using the Word as a filter to help you navigate life.
Yeah.
Good. So, just for fun, what'd you guys do for your senior skip day and your senior prank?
I love that.
No, don't tell them.
So we didn't do anything constructive.
Okay, good.
Ours was constructive, literally constructive.
Okay, we want to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear.
I think a lot of you were here for it. It was the first year that we had this campus, and so we knew it couldn't be anything destructive, or it shouldn't be destructive either way. But we wanted to be very life-bringing and very joyous, and instead of making it hard for you guys to pick it up, or I don't know, I remember these years in the past.
I'm liking where this is going.
I'm just not going to say anything that in the past. I'll just talk about mine.
Yeah.
So as far as, I'll talk about Senior Dish Day first, actually, and we'll get to that because that's more fun. Senior Dish Day, we basically took a Friday off, and we went up to a cabin that Anthony Nelson, he knew a teacher back from his old school who had a cabin. So we stayed up there at Lake Nacimiento. Yes. And we had an awesome time. And then still there were like 5 of us who just decided to keep on going, and we all took a car up to Big Sur, and we stayed at his Anthony's father's house, where he lived as a chaplain for the school up there. Huh. And so we stayed there, and we came back down, and still such a great experience, just kind of be able to do that on your own, just kind of spontaneously do stuff. And that's one thing in college you get to do, is just, I have nothing to do today, and so you can do anything you want. You can go, I remember sometimes we went to, anyway, off topic. So we, for our senior prank, we, I constructed this pyramid. You weren't here for this. Wow. So yeah, it was probably like, I want to say like 20 feet tall. Wow. 2
stories tall.
It's pretty tall, yeah. And it was about like 16 or 18. Anyway, a long time ago. I made this pyramid, and I remember being at home constructing it and doing all the math for it and whatnot. Thanks, Mr. Erickson. Basically had to make these supports and whatnot, and we took this painter's not tape, but it's like stuff you put on the ground. It's clear-ish, it's opaque. And, we made this giant kind of cover for it, then made it an actual pyramid, and then each of us seniors, we took plants, we put them in some pots, and then
a nursery.
Yeah, in a nursery. Exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
how come that didn't last?
Huh?
How come it didn't last?
What didn't last?
The nursery. Where did it go?
Oh no! I mean, it was very it was not meant to last.
Okay.
It was made of some PVC pipe, and so it was made right. We actually put it right out there. The fountain was the very middle of the nursery.
Right.
And so it would have been very odd to have, and very kind of But I'm sure it could have been done better, and it could have been put somewhere else. But at the time I was on about 15 minutes of sleep that night.
Oh wow.
And so I wasn't really thinking about that. And it was just kind of, and they actually left it up because they didn't want to take it down.
No,
and
that's cool.
It was very constructive. And we had someone bring in baby chicks, and put it in the nursery too, just because I don't know why not. Because they're nice and cute, and everyone likes little baby chickens.
Yeah.
And Yeah, that was very fun.
Good.
And very constructive.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, guys, this is someone who is 4 years ahead of you, and
5, but
oh,
yeah.
true, 5 years ahead of you, and so he has navigated a path where his faith is stronger. He's exercised wisdom in the people that he hangs out with. He's got some better dynamics with his parents than before.
I didn't really talk about my parents much, just my sister.
You did. Real quickly,
Yeah.
what would you tell our seniors about what you learned after graduating and how they might strengthen the bonds they have with their parents now? What might you address about that? If you could go back to high school knowing what you now know about your parents and the relationship you have, what would you have changed in high school?
Would I have changed in high school?
Yeah. Or your senior year?
Yeah. Just when you go to college, obviously you're not home, so you don't really get to have that time that you spend with your family, your parents, and whatnot, and kind of on your own, unless you go to Cal Poly, in which case, good for you.
Or Cuesta or Hancock.
Or Cuesta, yeah. Yeah, really cherish that time that you have with your family, and just like my sister, she went to viola and she was homesick to death. I really didn't have much of a huge homesick spell. I kind of liked being away for a while, but it eventually got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to go back home because a little stressed here, and it's really a good point to come back and reinvest that time with your folks, and you'll really see after you go to college. Hopefully, before that you can spend a lot more time with your family, but you'll really see if you go away that time is really well cherished, and you wish you could have spent more time with your family.
Cool.
Yeah, and one more thing we talked about, we haven't talked about it now. We talked about, so this is Mr. Erickson talking, really. He told me right before I started college, he goes, that's one big elephant, you gotta eat, which is college. It's something that you wouldn't imagine, taking on is college, and there's that long list of 146 units that you gotta do, and basically, Mr. Erickson put it really well. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and it's just one step at a time, and you'll get through it. Times will seem tough, and to where you're really kind of choked, but you're prepared very well with the school, very well, especially with Mrs. Lamone. Gotta say, and I know that you've toned it down a little bit, I've heard, but
no, there's still
it's
AP.
still okay. There you go. Yeah, so
yeah,
still pretty rough going.
Yeah.
But you've been well prepared, and God wouldn't give you anything you can't do with Him. So make sure you still have Him for that control and that wisdom. But just know that you can get through it, and that your professors aren't going to push you anything also beyond your intellectual ability, especially with a school. You're very well prepared.
All right, guys. Thank you, Thomas,
Yeah.
for this time, and I hope that you guys will give me 2 areas of feedback that inspired you and encouraged you from this conversation. I'd like for you guys to prepare that for your classmates so we can share those areas. All right. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll get back to it after this video. Blessings.